Hi guys, in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to deploy an FTP server in the cloud on the Amazon Web Services cloud computing platform. So I've got a diagram that I've come up with here that illustrates what we're trying to achieve here. So we've got two FTP clients, FTP client A and FTP client B, that would want to share a very large file. So to share this file, FTP client A would connect to the FTP server and upload that file to the FTP server. And then FTP client B would then connect to the same server once the file upload process is complete and then download that same file to their computer. So this is an effective and efficient way that the two clients can share a very large file using whatever internet connection that they may have available to them. So it provides a flexible and effective way of sharing very large files over a standard internet connection. So I've actually already signed into my Amazon Web Services console, and the first thing that we're going to do is to open the Amazon Lightsail service. So to do that, on the top search bar, search for Lightsail. And on the search result under the services section, click on Lightsail. So once the Lightsail web application is open, click on the create instance button. So I'm going to click on create instance, and on the instance creation page, the first thing that you need to do is to select an instance location. So click on the change AWS region and availability zone link, and then select an instance location that is closest to you. So once you've chosen an instance location, the next thing that you need to do is to configure the instance image. So select a platform. I'm going to choose Linux/Unix, and then the next thing is to select a blueprint. So I'm then going to choose the Ubuntu 16.04 blueprint, and then scroll down to the choose your plan section. So here is where you actually select the amount of money that you're willing to pay on a monthly basis. So if you choose to pay $3.50 a month, you get an instance that comes with 250 gigs of SSD storage. If you choose to pay $5, you get an instance that comes with 40 gigs of SSD storage. If you choose to pay $10, you get an instance that comes with 60 gigs of SSD storage. So the plans go all the way up to $160, where you actually get an instance that has even 32 gigs of memory and 64 gigs of SSD storage. So for learning purposes, I'm just going to choose the $3.50 instance. Actually, if you choose any of the first three plans, you actually get your first 3 months free of charge. So I'm going to select the $3.50 plan and then scroll down to the identify your instance section. So this is where you actually need to name your instance, and you need to make sure that you put in a descriptive name that ensures that you'll be able to identify your instance in future. So I'm going to call this instance FTP server. So once I've named it FTP server, the next thing is to click on the create instance button. So Amazon Lightsail will then go forward to provision that instance for me, and then in the next thing to do actually is to set a static IP address on the instance. So the instance creation process takes about a minute or so for the Lightsail web application to provision the cloud resources that you've actually requested for. So we just have to wait for the instance creation process to complete, and then next we're going to set a static IP address on the instance. So to set a static IP, click on the networking tab and then click on the create static IP button. Select on the attached to instance section, select the FTP server that we've actually created just now, and then on the identify your static IP section, we're going to name this IP address FTP server public IP address. So once you've named the static IP address, click on the create button. So this will actually provision a public IP address from the pool of public Amazon IP addresses and provision it to your new FTP server. So in the next step, I'm then going to show you how you can then connect to this instance via SSH, and then how you can then configure the server for FTP data transfer. Okay, so what we're actually going to do now is to connect to the server via SSH, and then we're going to download and install system and package updates, and then we're actually going to install the OpenSSH server package, and then finally we're then going to connect to the FTP server using an FTP client called FileZilla. So to connect to the server via SSH, the first thing that you need to do is to download the key pair file which grants you SSH access in the first place. So from the Lightcell dashboard, click on Account and then click on Account. Click on the SSH Keys tab and then download the key pair file for the region where the FTP server instance is actually located. Once you've actually downloaded this file, the next thing that you actually need to do is to change the permissions on this file. So open your terminal application and change your working directory to the downloads directory. So I'm going to change it to the downloads directory. And then to change the permissions, run the command chmod 400 and then append the file name for the key pair file, like that. Okay, so I've changed the permissions on the file so that it becomes a read-only file. If you don't do this, then you won't be able to connect to the FTP server via SSH, because Amazon has actually made it a requirement that whenever you want to connect out to an instance, your key pair file needs to be a read-only file for security reasons. So once you've done this, to connect to the instance, run the command ssh-i and then append the file name for the key pair file .pem, and then input the username, which is Ubuntu, at the IP address for the instance. So I'm then going to go back to Lightcell, copy the IP address and then paste it into the terminal application. Then you hit enter. So you should then be able to connect through to the instance. As you can see, I've connected. So the next thing that we're going to do is to elevate privileges to root by running the command sudo su. Once you've run that command, run the command apt-get update &apt-get upgrade. So this will actually download and install Ubuntu system and package updates. I've actually made a typing error on the first apt. I actually left out a T there. So it's supposed to be apt. It's not aptp, aptp. Actually remove that P actually. Okay. Alright, so once you run this command, it will actually check for and install any available updates. In this case, it didn't install any, probably because the system is actually in its most up-to-date state. But in your case, if it actually does install anything, you actually then need to restart the instance. So once you've done this, the next thing is to try to install the OpenSSH server package by running the command apt-install OpenSSH server. So if the package wasn't installed, it was actually then going to download and install it, but in this case it's actually already installed, and it's actually in its latest version. As you can see, it says OpenSSH is already the newest version. So in my case, it seems like my Ubuntu instance is pretty much ready to go. So the next thing that we're going to do is to connect to this instance using an SFTP client such as FileZilla. So close out of the terminal application and then open FileZilla. So once you've opened FileZilla, click on File and then click on Site Manager, and then click on New Site. Actually, okay, we can actually just remove this one and then click on New Site. So we're going to name it FTP Server. FTP Server. Okay. And then on the protocol, choose SFTP, and then on the host, copy the public IP address for the FTP server and then paste it into FileZilla on the host input field. Once you've done that, on the logon type, select key file, and then on the user input box, type in the username for the for FTP instance. So mine is Ubuntu. And then on the key file, browse to the downloads folder, select the key file, and then click on open. Okay, so I've actually selected the key pair file. You can actually set a background color. I'm going to set mine to blue. Okay, and then click on connect. So it's actually connecting out to the FTP server that we've actually provisioned. So FileZilla actually detects that this is a new connection that we're actually creating. So if you see this unknown host pop-up message, click on always trust this host and then click on OK. So it's actually now connecting out to the instance, and you can actually see that it has actually successfully connected. Okay, so now what we're actually going to try to do is to upload some stuff to the FTP data transfer directory. So I'm actually going to copy through my key pair file, which is this one, and then I'm going to move it into the FTP data transfer directory. And then we're going to see if it's going to actually successfully upload, but then it says permission denied. This is probably because we've actually connected using a user that doesn't have root access. So to correct this, we're actually going to reconnect to the instance via SSH. Actually need to move back into the downloads directory. Then I'm going to reconnect to the FTP server via SSH, and then I'm going to change my my privileges to root. And then what I'm actually going to do is to change the file permissions on the FTP data transfer directory. So to do that, run the command chown. So it's actually chown, I think, chown ubuntu :ubuntu and then FTP. Okay, so we've changed the permissions on that file, on that directory, to the Ubuntu user. Okay, so let's go back to the FTP, to the FileZilla FTP client. Then let's retry to copy through that file. So drag the file and drop it there. So hopefully it's going to actually allow me to upload. Okay, so the upload has actually been successful. So this is how you can basically set up an FTP server in the cloud on the AWS cloud platform. And you can actually upload even much larger files, such as database backup files and a whole lot of other file types that you might not even be able to upload using well-known services such as Google Drive and OneDrive. So on the other end, if you're then going to then use this FTP server with a peer, you're then going to have to share the key pair file so that they can also be able to connect through to to this FTP server. And the cool thing is actually we're connecting to the server via SFTP. So this is actually a secure way that we're actually connecting to the server. And even if there was someone who was going to then try to eavesdrop onto our traffic to see what we're sharing, or to hijack onto the data transfers that are happening to this server, you actually have a peace of mind that you actually have an added layer of security because you're actually using SFTP. So basically we've reached the end of this tutorial. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and also like and share this video for more great and amazing content.